Hi, and welcome to episode 171 of the Heartland Knits Podcast. My name is Vicki, but you can find me as Heartland Knits on Ravelry and Instagram. And today is Sunday, August 6th, 2017. Today's show, I have a ton of stuff to show you, and it's also going to be sort of the wrap-up episode for knitting camp, Meg Swanson's knitting camp, which my session was held last weekend. I've talked about it on the podcast before. There's 4 sessions of her knitting camp, 1, 2, 2.75, and 3. I attend 3. Sometimes it is referred to as oft-timers because it kind of, the attendees of that particular session were sort of the original campers there, and they they didn't want to be called the old timers, so it was the oft timers. So anyway, I have lots of new things. I have knitting and spinning. Well, I can talk about the spinning. I don't have it to show you, but I have knitting to show you, new things on the needles, new things finished. I have new sewing finished, new sewing sort of upcoming, and just a ton of stuff. So let me get started with what is on my needles. This always feels like the start of my knitting year because everything sort of, goes in. I'm trying to finish things up before knitting camp, and so kind of in this time frame I can cast on all kinds of new things I want to get done. And this particular project is something that I've had on my mind. It's a little obligation knitting-ish, but I had intended on working on it last week when I was at camp, but I'd kind of held it off for that reason because I thought I could probably knit the whole thing while I was there, or close to the whole thing. And what this is a little baby sweater. So they don't take too long to knit, and this is for my niece's son. I got a baby announcement and thought, I should probably knit a little something. I wasn't, it was summer, so I wasn't going to stress about getting it done in a snap, because baby wouldn't probably need the sweater until kind of the fall and the winter. Coming down to camp, I wanted to knit a baby sweater, and I decided I wanted to use this pattern, which is the Babies and Bears sweater by Carol Anderson, Cottage Creations. I made this sweater a long time ago for a knitting yarn shop sample, and thought, well, that'll be kind of fun, boy things. You can't do all the little frilly stuff. This sweater is sized according to gauge, so the very smallest sizes use sport weight yarn, and I wanted to do between a 6 and 12 month size, so that's in a worsted weight, 5 stitches to the inch. And I don't keep a whole lot of worsted yarn around, and I really don't keep a lot of superwash kind of worsted yarn around. I prefer using wool yarn, so I hadn't kind of thought ahead to kind of put in an order to someplace else that I wasn't so sure would get to me on time. It was came down to about a week before camp, and I started thinking, I need yarn if I'm going to knit this baby sweater. And so anyway, I ended up just going, and I didn't have time to get to kind of any shops or anything. So I just kind of went to, I think, Joann's, and I bought some Vanna White something, and I was going to knit it out of that. And I'm a yarn snob. I don't really like working with acrylic yarn, and it was, most of those come in kind of very, I don't know, the colors, palette of those kind of yarns is not really my cup of tea, and I didn't know that my niece would like it, and I ended up not starting the sweater. I cast on the sweater last week, but then I ended up working on something totally different all the way through. And then on this Wednesday, I took a drive up to Door County, and I went to a yarn shop up there where I found the yarn that I'm using. So this sweater has this sort of kind of mitered look. It looks like it's similar in looks to the Elizabeth Zimmerman Baby Surprise sweater, but it is done in a completely different construction method. You start at the, one cuff and you work up, and then you do the other cuff and you do the other side, and then you kind of graft it down the back. And now I have picked up stitches and I am knitting a little hood. So I'm almost to the size, and then you're going to do some decreases, and eventually it is going to be grafted down the middle to make a little hood. And then I have to do like picking up stitches around all these edges, the bottom, and do a little edging. So anyway, it's a nice little sweater to do. The yarn that I'm using is Plymouth Encore, and the color is called Burnished. It is 1445 is the color number, but it's kind of got a nice little heather in it, and it's got a little bit of a reddish kind of heather. And yes, I know one cuff has white cuff and one doesn't. I started out doing it with the white cuff because I had some kind of cream Encore, and it has this little feature of kind of a little colorwork pattern up the sides of the front and then the middle of the back, and I thought, oh, I'll just kind of do the cuffs in the cream. And then as I was working it, I thought, with the white and the cream, I thought, oh, it's gonna look kind of like a gingerbread man sort of sweater. And I didn't really want that. So the second side, I just used the same color, and I'm going to go back now and cut this off and it's just 3 little garter ridges, and I'll just work, pick up some yarn and do that out. It won't show. So, yeah. So for right now, it's a little different. To me, it looks a little like it's going to be a little short in the body. I was just came from church, and I was like scoping out like how old is that baby, you thinking, like how big is it? Because I don't see babies on a regular basis. So I don't know. I might pick up all those stitches and just do maybe an inch of garter down and then do the edging. I don't know. It just seems like it's short. I know babies are square, but I don't know. So anyway, it's a fun pattern, kind of interesting to knit. There's always something going on. I didn't remember that there's like so much like breaking the yarn, and there'll be a lot of finishing at the end, because you end off the yarn at different places and things. So there'll be a fair amount of finishing. But anyway, I kind of did that just from Thursday, Friday, and hopefully I will finish it up today. So off the needles, I have several things off the needles. The first are 2 shawls that I wanted to finish before knitting camp. I think I have talked about and showed you the yarn and kind of what I wanted to do with them, but I have finished them. I got them both finished. This first one I finished on the 4th of July, and this is my gold silk shawl. This is this beautiful gold silk yarn that my friend and fellow knitting camper Kevin Ames sent to me last fall. He sent me a skein of this yarn. He made a shawl out of this colorway of this yarn last year that I modeled at knitting camp, and then that shawl went into the raffle, and I tried to win it, and I was heartbroken when I didn't win it. And so he ended up finding me a skein of this color, and the color is called French Monk's Finest. The yarn was dyed from a Verb for Keeping Warm, and their shimmering, and it's 100% silk lace. And so the pattern for this, you could see me through it, is a Herbert Niebling. So this is a Herbert Niebling, and the pattern is called Eichenlaub, which is German for oak leaves, and you can sort of see it's got the acorns and the oak leaves. And so anyway, I made it. It is, like most needlings, it's a round, kind of like doily tablecloth. That's what they were originally designed for, and I made it into a kind of a little more wearable shape, for wearing as a shawl. It was a lot of fun to knit. Needlings to me are a really kind of relaxing knit, because you just follow the chart and you don't have to make sort of any decisions about, when I'm making a sweater, I'm always thinking, well, when should I start the sleeves? What should I do with the neck? And you have to kind of make those decisions, and sometimes after I make the decision, then I'm like double thinking it. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. And then I kind of go back and forth. And so with this, you just kind of knit, the pattern. This one took me a little bit. I think I've shown, if you've watched kind of the back episodes, I started 3 different designs with this yarn, because this yarn was special to me. I needed to have it like just the right pattern. I think I started the peony, the Pfingstrosa, and then I started another one, gold Regan I started. And this is the one I really, really wanted to do. So I ended up, I thought there was going to be too many rows for the amount of yardage that I had, but I was, managed to just cut out like a whole big section, and it all worked together smoothly and seamlessly. And so this one, I managed to do. And so that one is really special to me, and I love it so much. And the second shawl that I finished, that I think I showed the yarn, and I think I talked about the project that we had sort of decided on for knitting camp. There's a group of us that sort of I don't know if you call it a knit along or whatever. We all sort of decide on like an Elizabeth thing that we want to knit, and then kind of we show them all together as a group, and usually Cully, Meg's son, will record kind of us talking about them and showing them, and then he puts together a little video and puts it up on the Schoolhouse Press website. So last year it had been decided that we were going to do pie shawls, and I just said, no, I'm not doing a pie shawl, because pie shawls are a ton of knitting, and there were so many other things that I wanted to knit, so I was like, yeah, I'm out. And then kind of in the spring, I thought about, well, if I was going to do a pie shawl, I wanted to do sort of an all Estonian lace one, and I had this skein of hand spun. And so anyway, I finished this gold shawl on the 4th of July, and so that was 3 weeks before I would have had to have a pie shawl done. I thought, okay, I have 3 weeks. I had 1,500 yards, and it's hand spun, so you know how I feel. I got to use all the yarn. And I thought, okay, that's 500 yards a week. This should be doable. So I, just thought, okay, just, move forward. And how I said, I, kind of rethink things when I'm doing like sweaters and things. I just told myself, I couldn't kind of if I chose a stitch pattern, I just had to like move forward and just keep going. And I couldn't kind of like backtrack and say, oh, I wish I would have done this one and like rip it out and change. I did, because I didn't have time for that. So I managed to finish this. I finished it up on Tuesday, the Tuesday before camp, like a week ago Tuesday. And I blocked it Wednesday night. And I enjoyed this project. I wasn't going to do it. And I've done a pie or square before, and it was a lot of fun. But this one just, it was just a pleasure to work on. I was kind of sewing during the days of those last couple weeks, and then I would, knit so much on the shawl, and I really enjoyed the Estonian patterns after like one of them. One of them got a little bit like much, but it's because they all have noops. And so anyway, this is my Estonian pie shawl. And I did a half circle because I had just this 1,500 yards. So I didn't think that would be enough for an entire circle. And so these are all, you can hopefully see they're all have noops in. And I have, so basic pie. You start here at the top. This one doesn't have noops. At the very, very top, I think it was called Blueberry Stitch, and that came from the Nancy Bush Estonian book. And then this one I just sort of improvised. These first couple areas, there's not a lot of rows to play with. So I just kind of did these little noops in a kind of diamond pattern. And then I continued the diamond shape, and this is a leaf lace pattern that it came from. The rest of the stitch patterns came from the big Haapsalu shawl Estonian book. So there's that. And then this was a Sylvia pattern, which is very, very fancy, and it had a lot of noops, and it almost drove me crazy. I didn't know if I was going to get through that, but I love how fancy it looks. And then I went into, and each time with the pie shawl, each time you kind of double the stitches, and I didn't really do anything like special to set off the increases. At the end I was thinking, oh, I should have done this or that, and like next time. But so this third one is like a more vertical pattern. I wanted to do kind of one that had a more vertical. These have more of a horizontal kind of look. And this one is a Lily of the Valley pattern. It's a Lily of the Valley in leaves, which I wanted to do a Lily of the Valley because it's so common with the Estonian lace. But most of the time, they're kind of like the, little flowers, the little noops kind of go, this direction, which, because this is a shawl that you're working top down, they would sort of be upside down. So I thought this was a good compromise, and I decided I really, really liked it. This was one I just kind of saw in the book, and at just spur of the moment, I thought, oh, I will use that one. And I love how it came out. I would definitely actually like to use this as a stitch pattern for a sweater. I liked it, working on it that much, except for because I was in a time crunch. It is kind of a ribbed pattern. There are pearl stitches on it. So there was, knits and pearls on both sides and all the noops and stuff. So then I increased again, and my original thought was I wanted to do a Greta Garbo pattern, which I should show you the one I was going to use. So the bottom one, I wanted to do a Greta Garbo pattern, which I'll just show you this picture. You can sort of see it's kind of big diamonds with like noops in the. So anyway, that's kind of what I was going to, and the row count was going to come out right, and so I increased stitches, and I kind of weighed my yarn, and I knit 10 rows of it, and I could tell I was not going to be able to get through an entire repeat. And with how that is, it would have looked kind of funny if I'd only gotten halfway. It wasn't just kind of a repeating pattern that I could just kind of end it when I didn't have any more yarn. It kind of needed to do the whole repeat. And so I went back because I wanted to have enough yarn, and then I did kind of this longish on the doubled stitches, I did this sort of longish edging, and my little, it's been folded up, so my little points aren't looking so pointy right now, but so I liked how that I kind of extended. There was an edging sort of like this, but it wasn't this extended. I did kind of design this out to extend it down and make it a little bit longer. And along the whole top edge, I have this little lace edging, which I worked at the same time as the rest of the stitch pattern. So kind of in the almost Orenburg lace tradition, where you have like the lace pattern. So I started with this, and I kind of worked that out. So it has like a lacy edge, but I didn't have to come back at the end. I, was kind of doing that because I was pressed for time and thought, oh, I'm not gonna like really have time to do that. And so anyway, I am like really happy with it, except for how those points are looking right now. But so anyway, that is the second shawl that I finished. And then I have one other project that I finished kind of earlier on in the year that I did do a little recording showing, and it was my knitting camp contest entry. As part of that, I didn't come home with the full project, but that was the point of it. So I did record a little something so that you got to see it, and I will throw that in here. Hi! I have a couple things that I want to show you that by the time I record a full podcast after Meg Swanson's knitting camp, these things I won't have anymore. And then I also wanted to show you my knitting camp contest entry. And the theme of this year's contest and the theme we chose was poetry. And I sort of I thought of a couple different ideas, but this was one of them that kind of I kind of really wanted to do, because my favorite poem is by Emily Dickinson, and it is "The Hope is the Thing with Feathers." So let me try to read this to you. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. So I love that. So for camp this year, for the contest, I knit a basket of hope. These are all the little bluebirds of happiness that are so kind of common. A lot of people have made these, but these are all kind of scraps from projects going back probably 20 years. There's all different ones. There's little sock yarn. This is like an Arnie and Carlos. I have, these are little kid silk haze, little fuzzy ones from shawls that I've done. I've got hand spun. Remember this green hand spun shawl that I knit and reknit so many times? Little samples of spindle spun that I've never actually used, but I kind of just wanted to try out the spindle, and so I spun a little bit. There's some. These are kind of some of the really old ones. There's Koigu, which I just think made a really, really pretty bird. There's some Madeline Tosh. This I think is like one of my favorites. And when I was knitting this, I was on a VKN with some friends, and I was kind of knitting around and knitting the head. And so it is lollipop yarn. One of my samples, I double stranded it, lined up the colors so they would stripe. And I was going around and around you finish on the head, and you pull the last, few stitches that you've decreased together to form the beak. And here's his beak. And it just it just happened that, the next color was the brown, and that turned out to just be where his beak was. So it was a fun project to do. It took a while. So the first bird that I knit, I started the night that we were notified that we got into camp, and so that was the first night that I knit one, and then for a long time after that I knit one bird a night, and kind of as things go, I kind of got put aside, and then in kind of late April I picked it up and I sort of worked through them. So in this basket there are 75 of these little birds. That is one for each of the campers and the Schoolhouse Press staff, and probably be a few extra, but I wanted to make sure we get a list of the attendees in our session, and so I knew how many were kind of signed up. But then sometimes things change, and maybe there's like other people, and a couple years ago Meg's daughter was there with her kids, and anyway, so I just wanted there to be enough, so I made 75. Usually, I wouldn't need to make quite that many, maybe like 65 or 60, 67 or something like that. But anyway, I wanted there to be enough for one for everybody. So what we do for knitting camp is everybody presents their project, and then you get they're kind of put out in the middle of the room, and everybody gets a ballot and kind of walks around and can look at them up close, and they put down their two favorite. I didn't do this to sort of win, or that's like really not kind of what I wanted by this. But anyway, as they're walking around and voting, I'm going to tell them that they can each choose one to take home with them. That's why I won't have these when I come home. And they can choose whatever one strikes their fancy. And it was really fun, and it was like really fun to see sort of I kind of knew there would be a lot of pink birds, a lot of blue birds, but I didn't realize there would be so many green birds this color green. I have a whole bunch, just slightly different. They're the only greens, here's another green. The only greens seem to be this sort of medium green. So it was kind of interesting. It was a fun project to do. And anyway, my basket of hope. I almost forgot. I do have one more finished project. And that was what I worked on at camp. And that is, I like to do, have a hat project. Often we have a pattern included in our little folder that we get at our place. She does kind of handouts for kind of the earlier camps, but then kind of includes one for us because we always, like to have something. There's a couple of us that do the hats every year, and this year she had a bunch of different hats that I know I have seen other camps, like I've seen like of them on my Instagram from like other people that were doing them, but we kind of didn't get them. And one of them I really liked, and I knew right off that I wanted to do, and so I chose some unspun Icelandic. So this is done in the Armenian knitting technique, and so this is my camp hat. It's got these two little cats, and then you'll see the whole back is a just solid, and this is done in the Armenian knitting. I think do you know what Armenian? Sometimes I feel like funny, like explaining something like that, because I think, why would I think that you don't know what Armenian knitting is? It is sort of a lesser known knitting thing. Meg and Joyce Williams wrote kind of a slim volume kind of about it, and the whole point of it is to be able to, so this is not intarsia in the round, but instead it is completely stranded. Oh, my tails still haven't been cut off, but so you can see this is where the cats are, but then the whole back is completely stranded. And the point is to like evenly strand them and to get the blips to show through to the front. So with most stranding, when you catch or trap a yarn, because you've got like a long expanse between the pattern colors, your aim is to do that invisibly. You don't want any of that color to show through. Well, in this knitting, this Armenian knitting, you want it to show through. We got a little sadistic about it because my friend Kim and I were like sitting kind of opposite each other, and we're like, but I can't get it to show through on the cats. So the cats are more solid. I had more trouble with that, but you can, I don't know. I'm hoping that you could see the teal through there. Obviously it's stranded. You want the little blips to show through. If I like pull it really hard, you can sort of see them. You want the little blips to show through. And this whole thing came from, I think Joyce was asked to write the pattern up. There was a designer from, I think, the 1920s called Elsa Schiaparelli, who had these sweaters, and I think Joyce was asked, I'll probably get this wrong, but it was East Coast, I want to say like Philadelphia or something, a museum there that had one. She had a very, very famous design called, like with a bow knot. So it was like a black sweater that looked like it had a white scarf on it that was like tied into a little bow, and it had like, the bow had like little streamers, and the white scarf looked like it was almost spotted, but that was the black yarn just showing through as it was stranded across, and the black sort of had, little white blips. And she, looked at this, and it was obvious, and I don't know if there were like other examples of this, but this designer employed Armenian women to knit these sweaters, and this was sort of, they've kind of tracked it down, but it was never like for sure, like, because they like investigated, and so anyway, the best that they have come up with, this was an Armenian knitting technique that was meant to so that you could have sort of just this pattern in the front, or just this pattern, just these colors on the decreases, but then it's stranded inside. You didn't have to do the intarsia in the round kind of thing. And so anyway, I did this hat. It took me 3 tries. I finished this after I got home. I had to actually restart this like 3 times. I did the first one because when you're trapping all the time, it's a little more inelastic, so I was worried it wasn't going to fit, and I could tell like by Saturday night that it was way too big. And so I restarted. I went 2 needle sizes down, which is the needles that I was going to use originally. And I got that up to, just at the top of the cats. And I tried it on, like when I got home, I took it off the needles and tried it on, and it was like too big. And I really fell in love with these 2 colors together. This is Unspun Icelandic, and it is, the kind of dark color is called Marsh Heather, and the cat color is, I think they call it aqua, but it's more of like a turquoisey color, and I love them together. The Marsh Heather is a color I have never ever looked twice at. I've got all the browns, I've got all this sort of grays, here. I've used things with them, or, I bought them kind of at camp that I, did a small project. And so I knew I was going to be doing this hat when I saw the pattern in our folder. And I wanted to get kind of 2 colors that I knew I didn't have any wheels of unspun, so that when I had the leftovers, they wouldn't be just the same colors that I had. So I went for this teal because I think I was going to use it one time, and they were out of stock on it, and it's really pretty. It's teal, it's one of my colors, And so I walked over and I put it next to this marsh heather, which I've always thought it looked a little swampish. It just, it's brownish, but it's got kind of a green, there's like green, like almost heather in it. So it's kind of more of an olivey, kind of a brown, and it never really like spoke to me, but I love it with this teal, and I want to do a sweater with these two colors. So anyway, this was my project. I would put it on, but I have my hair pinned and, that wouldn't work. So, but trust me, this finally, the third time, it does really fit me. And this is going to be sort of my go-to hat for the year, for the winter. Let me quickly, since I am wearing this, I sewed 3 dresses in July, and this was one of them. This was the dress I sewed for my show and tell dress. And so let me stand up and show it to you while I'm wearing it and tell you about it a little bit. I talked about the fabric in one of the past episodes, but this is the some Gertie fabric that I bought. It's a cotton sateen, and I just love it. So it's got this like border print. It is lined. I'm holding that up. And I did actually, I don't know if this is going to show, but I did put in a little bit of crinoline just on the lining to give it a little poof. It's so the back of it is just kind of plain. So I used the bodice from the couture dress pattern and the skirt from a new look pattern because I liked the sort of box pleats, and it worked perfectly doing that. It is lined with a really nice cotton, just white cotton batiste. I didn't do the full couture dress. I really kind of wanted to. I wanted to have a full couture one because as sort of like leading up, I had the shoes picked out I wanted to wear, and I wanted to do 5 different dresses in 5 different styles, and I got them all done. So I wanted to do one couture one, but I didn't have the time to do that because catch stitching all those seam allowances down and stuff just takes so much time, and also because this doesn't have an underlining in it. It has a lining, but not the underlining, and the underlining you have to mark with, the stitching lines and the grain lines and things. I just worried that even if I used like white or something on the underlining, that it would show through, because the sateen is a fairly lightweight fabric, and so I just thought those lines would show through from the underlining, and like even in the seam lines or something. So what I ended up doing is I just sewed the lining in by hand. It's a really nice white cotton batiste, and I, understitched it all by hand and handpicked the zip, and, did all the little like finishing, the bra carriers and the little hem, thread chains for the hem and things. So anyway, I was, happy with how it came out. And this fabric was just a dream to sew with, this sateen. It was easy to sew. The only part that was hard is at the very top of the zip. I handpicked it, and when I came up the other side, I felt like the top needed to be like changed a little bit, just because you have to accommodate for the zipper pull, and you kind of arc the top edge of the zipper out a little bit to account for that. And I didn't like how I had started it on the one side, but I think because of the weave, you can sort of see, like, if I would have tried to take the zipper out and redo that, or at least redo that little section, it would have shown like all like where it was sewn before. And so I just thought it's good. It's just leave it alone. It's better like it is than to like try to redo it. So So I think I will talk about, like, I have a whole bunch of sewing or I have a whole bunch of new fabric that I think I will just wait and show you like another time. Most of it is some other Gertie fabric. When I went up to Door County, I stopped at the Green Bay Joann's because they carry the Gertie fabric, and it was all on sale for 50% off, and then I had a 20% off the top coupon. So I got a whole, like, 4 dresses worth of fabric. It was a really good deal. But there's summer fabrics, like, for next year. So I will, at some point, like, you'll get to see them. But I bought a couple other fabrics for fall. So I will be sewing with those fairly soon. But I do want to show you the things that I bought at camp. Not a lot, but and I did get a pair of shoes on sale right before camp, and they actually spurred me on to sew a dress in a really short amount of time, which I will, show you another time. For the contest, we all get, prizes. I, didn't do my entry to like win a prize. And mine came out, I don't know if mine was 4th or 3rd or 4th. I don't know. I know the 5th one was the lady that was sitting across from me, and it was a wild apple boho sweater. There was some incredible knitting in the contest. I couldn't believe mine came up that close. I think there were 15 entries. But anyway, when my name came up, I won Sun Valley Fibers yarn, which I was really excited because it's like a yarn I really love. So I got this beautiful skein of Sun Valley Fibers MCN worsted, which is would be great for a hat. And this is a color called Coffee Break. It's kind of like coffee with cream. And so I was really excited because I love Jeanette's yarn, and I think this will make a really nice little hat. A lot of times, you'll hear of somebody, or you want to knit a chemo hat for somebody or something, and like I said, I don't keep a lot of kind of worsted weight yarn kind of just in my stash. So this will be like a great thing to just keep for that. And then I bought this yarn, which is this black and white 2 skeins. They're like small skeins, and this is Blackberry Ridge fingering. It's 110 yards in a skein, and it is just their their yarn. And I got it in black and white to do Selbstbutter mittens. I've had that big Selbstbutter book for like the whole year, and I thought I'm gonna get a couple of skeins of this and knit me some mittens out of it. And then I bought 4 skeins of Einbond in this really pretty silver gray. It is color number 1026, and this is for my next Faroese shawl. I always have 4 skeins of this sitting on the shelf for when my shawl just self-destructs. I made the kind of bright blue one last year when I came home from camp, and so I needed more, and so I chose this silver. I don't really have a silver kind of silver gray shawl. So, and then we have the market on Saturday. There were a few vendors that come in, and luckily she lives fairly close by, but she doesn't always come to our session. I don't know if she comes to other ones, but I love her yarn, and that is Jan Becker from Kimmitt Croft. And I bought black and white from her too, because Selbstbutter needs to be knit. And so I bought these from her. I've done all her cat kits and things, and I have a lot of different colors of her yarn, but I think I've knit, this is the Fairy Hair, which is 70/30 Angora Merino, and I knit gloves out of this with the bows patterning on the cuffs, and I really like it. They keep my hands warm and stuff. So I bought this, and then I was going to put the Blackberry Ridge back, at which point a friend of mine reminded me that Blackberry Ridge is up for sale. If you want to own a spinning mill, it's a lovely one, and I'm sure the owners would help you out with it. But she said, Blackberry Ridge is up for sale. Maybe if they close, you won't be able to get this. So I thought it's not bad to have two sets of mitten yarns for that. And then I also received, she gave these to me after I gave out my knitting camp contest. And these are little note cards from Carrie Anderson. Carrie is Carol Anderson's daughter, but she is a watercolorist and does these beautiful cards. And I mean, she has beautiful, like little watercolor paintings and things. But so I got those two. And then, you want to wait. And then, the best thing by far. So we have the, scholarship raffle, and everybody, you can bring things to raffle. And, last year I was heartbroken because I didn't win that gold shawl. But I got some of this yarn, and I knit my own gold shawl. So I had that beautiful thing. But, Kevin, once again, knit beautiful shawls, beautiful lace, and donated one of them for the raffle. And it was beautiful. And it's black lace, which how I am about. I've talked for years that I would love a black lace shawl, but I can't see it to knit it. So I put almost all my tickets in the little thing for the shawl. Somebody had donated a woolly board, which I don't have, and so I put a couple tickets in there, but most of them went in for the shawl. And I won it this year. I was so excited. I was like literally bouncing. I might start bouncing up and down right now because I'm so excited. I could not even believe it. I bought a lot of tickets, and so I'm looking at all the numbers on my tickets, thinking, it's, and then it like dawns, did he say 2121? And I'm looking at the ticket, and it has 2121 at the last four numbers, and she's like, yeah, I think so. That lady next to me says, yeah, I think so. And it was me, and I wanted. So I have this beautiful lace shawl. It's a stole. And so look at this beautiful thing. It's this like long stole, and I'll show you the ends are, a different pattern. It's just so beautifully knit. It's so beautifully knit. And it's not even just lace knitting. It's like true knitted lace. So there's patterning on both sides of when you're knitting it. You don't just have a clear rest row. And the pattern for this comes from the this Estonian book, the Triangular and Long Shawl book. And so I won this beautiful, beautiful thing. I was so super, super excited. And I don't know about, I can't speak for him. The yarn for this is Zephyr. It's a wool merino blend lace yarn. And, I donated a Lyra, which is a Herbert Niebling shawl, a few years ago. And the woman who won it was Lois Young. She's the longest coming off-timer. She's been there actually more years. Meg missed a year. I don't know why, but Lois has been there for all 44 years. And she is a lace designer. She designs lace things. And so it made me feel really good that a lace knitter won the lace shawl that I knit. So I was like so excited that, to win a piece of lace, by a friend of mine. So that was just the best. the rest of it is, I could go on and on and on about this. It is the best of the best. And I think about, well, like, why is it so much better than I've been to lots of different knitting retreats and like big events like Stitches or Madrona or whatever. And I think part of it is like, well, we come because Meg is there, and I'm a big, Meg Swanson, Elizabeth Zimmerman, like, knitter. I love their designs, and I love, like, the way they think about knitting. And but also, the experience of it, I think, is different than sort of other knitting retreats, in that we have like a shared experience of like what happens during the day at camp, from like in the morning, Meg is talking and like talking about knitting, and we learned a couple new cast-ons, and Elizabeth, showed us about how she defeated the little like blip that, when you do a tab cast on and you get sort of a little like blip out, and she's defeated that. So, like talking about that, and like just the little, like, the things I love of, the little, like, as Meg says, the knitting minutia, like the little things that I love about knitting. So, there's all of that, and then everybody does their show and tell, and you get to see, the knitting that they have done throughout the year, and, but it's this like shared experience that we all have during the day, and then, everybody kind of like smaller groups kind of go out to dinner, and then, you come back to the classroom, and you may sit over there with that group, or, like how some other knitting retreats, the whole thing is. But it feels like we've got this other shared experience. It's not like it's Stitches where, somebody takes a class, with that teacher or whatever. It's just different. So anyway, so their knitting really inspires me. All of the campers themselves as people really inspire me. The, struggles that they get through, and their confidence and their creativity, and just everything. It is the best. It kind of gets me through the year just like thinking about it. So anyway, onward to the next ending year. I didn't get to talk about like so much, so I'm going to have to record another podcast, because I didn't talk about like things that I am going to be starting soonly, quite soon. So I really knit this whole hat this week, and the sweater I'm hoping to finish up today or tomorrow. And then I have some shawls I want to cast on, some sweaters I want to cast on. I want to work on my Shetland project, and I want to spin some Shetland. And so I hope you have all had a really nice summer, and continue on through August, and however long we can keep this the good temperatures going. I love it when it's warm. But I need to close this down because it's quite long already. I thank you all for watching, and until I see you next time, from my heart to yours, happy knitting.